Psych. Hey, y'all! Happy Feminine Fridays! Happy Fridays, boo! Hi, y'all! Happy Feminine Fridays! Y'all know this is the jam. Hi, y'all! Okay, I'm done. Hey, boo! Hey! Happy Feminine Fridays! I am Regal Essence. I am Queen TV. I'm Queen TV After Dark. I'm your ray of sunshine in the afternoon time. I'm life as a love goddess. I'm life as a laidback mom. I'm your hood therapist, your crystal healer and dealer, and I'm your past life princess. Hey, boos. So, today, y'all, we digging a little deep. And this is going to be a two-part series because I don't want to make these videos too long. So, today we are talking about your inner child. Divine Feminine, how is your inner child ruining your relationship? Let's talk about it, okay? So, first I'm going to tell you guys, first I'm going to break down to you guys what your inner child is. For those of you guys that are not familiar with your inner child, it's psychological term used in psychology or therapy, right? I'm going to get into exactly what it is, right? And then today we're going to talk about three ways to know if you have a wounded inner child, okay? And then next Feminine Fridays, we're going to talk about ways to heal your inner child. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so your inner child is that childlike energy, right? Your childlike energy never dies, right? But some of us have a wounded inner child if we haven't done certain healing work, if we have gone through certain traumas, being raised, and you would be surprised what things are considered traumas, right? So we're going to get into that. Those are, let's see. We're going to talk about what the inner child is, how your inner child becomes wounded, okay? And then we're going to talk about how to know if you have a wounded inner child, okay? And then next week, we're going to talk about ways to heal your inner child, okay? So let's get into it. So your inner child is your childlike energy that actually resides in your first chakra, which is your base chakra. And your base chakra is the chakra that is the very first chakra, right? So it basically houses your energy body that helps you with feeling stable and helps you with feeling safe, okay? So the way our inner child becomes wounded is if at any point in your childhood you felt unsafe, right? If you experience any abuse in your childhood, be it physical or emotional. If at any time in your childhood you felt alienated, misunderstood, your parents antagonized you. I'm trying to think of the right way that I want to say it. If you were antagonized as a child, meaning you may have trusted your adults or the grown-ups in your life and they betrayed you, right? So maybe they told your secrets, maybe they made jokes about you, they laughed, you know, you were like the laughing stock of the family, or at certain times in your life, very important information that you shared, intimate information that you may have shared with an adult figure, parental figure, that information was shared, right? So that is kind of like it fools with your trust, right? Your ability to trust adults, right? What else? enmeshment, right? Enmeshment happens when a parent basically doesn't allow you to be yourself, but instead they tell you how to think, how to feel, what to do, right? Things of that nature. If you have experienced parents that say things like, oh, it's always a problem with you, or you're always a problem. So if you were made to feel like you were the problem child, or like you were a bother, like your feelings didn't matter, like your feelings weren't important. What else? Let me see. So we said physical or emotional abuse, being antagonized by a parent, betrayal of your trust, and that can be in multiple things. What else would make you feel unsafe? Enmeshment. We talked about enmeshment, and that basically is not allowing you to be able to be your own person, but instead they tell you how to think, feel, and all of those things, right? If you felt unloved, if you felt like you did not fit in with your family, if you felt like you didn't have an emotional connection with your family or your parental figures, all of those things can cause you to feel wounded as a child, right? But because our caretakers are the ones that are in a child's mind between the ages of 1 and 5 years old, basically everything about your environment, you take everything about your environment, and that is how it is that you formulate how it is that you view and see the world. And then even as you become an adult, those same views, that same lens that you had as a child, is how you view the world. So that affects our relationships. It basically affects every area of our life. That's why inner child healing is so very, very important. And inner child issues come out in our romantic relationships most of all. That's whenever it becomes the most prominent. So that's why I said, is your inner child ruining your relationship, right? Abandonment, that's a huge one, right? If you felt any sort of abandonment as a child, be it literal, physical abandonment, a parent was not there, left you with other caretakers. Also, too, if you were ignored, if you weren't validated as a child, meant to feel as if you were important, your needs were important, your feelings were important, all of those things go into a child feeling safe and stable, okay? So, like I said, the first 5 years of life, you are viewing the world by everything that you take in. You can look at it like the first 5 years of your life, right? And your 5 senses. Because as a child, you're always touching, eating, putting something in your mouth, smelling something, all of that kind of stuff, right? So in those first 5 years, you're basically collecting data, right? And that data will then go on to help you formulate how it is that you view and see the world, right? Based on those things that you gather. All of those things go into creating the energy within your base chakra. Your base chakra is responsible for you feeling safe, stable, and also your physical well-being, okay? So, in a nutshell, we can even break it down a little bit further. As a child, you need to feel safe. If you did not feel safe growing up or being raised, that can create a wounded inner child, okay? So our inner child energy is always going to be with us forever. Even as we become adults, we still have our inner child energy with us, right? So our inner child likes to play. Our inner child is emotional. Our inner child is emotional. Our inner child is pleasure seeking, right? So if your inner child is nurtured and healed, then you and your inner child, you guys will be able to coexist, right, in a very healthy manner. However, if your inner child is wounded, then you need to do inner work to heal your inner child so that Your inner child does not come out in your adult situations, right? Okay, so let's get into it. So, what does that look like in a relationship? What does a wounded inner child look like in a relationship? These are some questions that you can ask yourself to identify whether or not you have a wounded inner child, okay? Number one, do you need to be in control? Do you need to be in control of your relationships, of people, of your environment, how things go in life? Do you have this fierce need to be in control? That can be an indicator. Why? Because your wounded inner child has everything to do with your safety and feeling safe. So, if you are seeking safety, control may be a way that you seek out safety, right? Now, we can seek out safety in multiple ways, all depending on how it is that we were raised and what it is that we gathered about our environment as we were being raised, okay? So, control, the need to be in control, that is a way of feeling safe. Some people feel safe if they're in control. Am I in control of my environment? Am I in control of those around me? Am I in control of what's going on around me? Do I need things to be a certain way in order for me to be okay? Okay? So that plays into your safety. Okay? So with the healed, balanced root chakra, with a healed, balanced inner child, you can kind of go along with the flow. You don't have the need to be in control, right? And I would dare to say that women that are alpha females and they feel like, you know, they're supposed to tell man what to do and I feel as though they have imbalanced root chakras, okay? Because your need to be in control of things in your life is natural, but you have to be able to have the ability to go with the flow, the ebb and flow of life, okay? Another question that you can ask yourself to figure out if you have a wounded inner child is, like all of those things that I just named, did you ever feel any of those things being raised, right? If so, 9 times out of 10, you probably have a wounded inner child, right? So if you've experienced abuse, if you've experienced abandonment, if you have experienced intermeshment type of relationship with a parent, if you always felt like the outsider in your family, like everybody else is like cool, but like I just feel like the outsider, okay? Do you feel like you're an outsider in this world? Do you feel like the world is a cold, horrible place? Or do you feel as though the world is a benevolent place, and even though there's good and evil, but at the end of the day, I am going to be taken care of and cared for? Safety, right? That goes into feeling safe. Do you feel safe in this world? Do you feel safe in your body, physically? Or are you always concerned about health concerns? Are you concerned about death? Are you concerned about whether those around you will die? Are you concerned about whether those around you will leave you, right? Abandonment. That's a huge abandonment wound, right? So those are ways to be able to determine if you have a wounded inner child. Also, the third way to be able to determine if you have a wounded inner child is your base chakra balanced? Is your base chakra balanced or not? If your base chakra is not balanced, you will feel, oh, that's my poo. You won't feel safe. You won't feel safe in your environments. You won't feel stable. Like you will always feel like you lack a feeling of security and stability. Those are signs of an imbalanced root chakra. Do you actually, and like I've taught before, our chakras are our energy centers within our bodies, right? Our energy centers within our bodies affect us physically as well if they are off kilter. So Do you get sick often? Do you have autoimmune diseases? Do you often worry about being sick? Your root chakra is connected to your legs. Do you have problems with your legs? Aches and pains in your body, things of that nature, because the root chakra is responsible for your physical well-being. So if those things are something that plague you often, you could have an imbalanced root chakra. And like said, your root chakra is comprised of the energy that you gather and gain from the world growing up as a child. And if growing up you did not feel safe, appreciated, like you didn't feel a part of a unit, a loving unit, if you didn't feel encouraged, right? But instead you felt like, oh, I'm always the problem. They want to tell me what to do, how to feel, things of that nature. That also creates people that are people pleasers. Are you a people pleaser? That's another indicator whether you have a wounded inner child. Am I a people pleaser? Do I avoid conflict at all costs? Like, even if I'm upset about something, do I avoid conflict? That could be a sign of a wounded child, wounded inner child, okay? So, the ways that it... Now, like said, your inner child affects your romantic relationships, because with your romantic relationships, there's what? There's a level of intimacy. You have to be close, right? You have to be close. You have to be trusting, things of that nature. So, our romantic relationships are a huge place to realize whether or not we have a wounded inner child, because that wounded inner child will come out. It's gonna come out in your romantic relationships. And what that looks like is being very insecure because you're concerned about abandonment of some sort. You're concerned that people are going to leave you. Also, it can come out in how it is that you respond to certain things. Do you shut down? Do you shut down and just stop talking? Maybe for days, hours, maybe days. Do you? Do you have temper tantrums? Like, when you get upset, like, do you just go from 0 to 100? Like, and just go berserk? Like, almost like a kid having a temper tantrum. But except you're an adult. That is a clear indicator that your inner child issues are starting to come out in your relationship. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because oftentimes we get into relationships and we expect the relationship to make us whole, to make us better, to make everything in the world better. And relationships are amazing. Relationships are amazing for making us feel happy, making us feel complete and just freaking joyous, right? But if we don't realize that we have certain issues that we have to work on that actually stem all the way back to childhood and our lack of safety or feeling safe in our childhood, it can rear its ugly head in our relationships. Anytime that something happens that reminds us of our childhood, because this is the thing, when you go through childhood traumas, or you go through situations that cause you to feel unsafe as a child, your brain's default mechanism is fight or flight. And I've talked about this before. So for those of you that's been following me for a while, your brain's default mechanism is fight or flight, right? So fight or flight can look like fighting. Flight can look like that shutting down. Like, I just shut down. I just stop talking, right? Those things can cause issues in your relationships, right? Are you very jealous? Do you get very jealous? Are you insecure, right? Very valid feelings. Let me just validate your feelings. Very valid feelings, okay? Those are all very valid feelings. However, they can cause issues in your relationships, right? So, like, if you're sitting there with your boyfriend or your man or your boo or bae or however you want to refer to them, and say they're just chilling today. Like, they not talking a whole lot. Somebody who suffers from insecurities or abandonment issues, you're going to get worried. You're going to get up in arms like, what's wrong? Are you okay? What's going on? Because all your systems the alarms start to go off internally, because you're just like, oh my God, something's wrong. I'm about to be abandoned. I'm about to be left. Something like that, right? So that can create issues in your relationships, right? Especially if your partner is good, like, and nothing is going on, but yet you find yourself like in this fight or flight mode, anxious, scary, insecure, depressed, things of that nature. All of those are symptoms of a wounded inner child. So we want to be able to identify those things and identify where it is that it came from, so that we can actually heal those things. But inner child healing is very deep, transformational healing, right? And it's like, it's just the bomb, right? It's just the bomb. It's just the bomb. Healing your inner child is probably one of the most important healing modalities, one of the most important things that you want to do along your healing journey. And oftentimes, also not feeling enough. Like, if you don't feel enough as a woman, that also is an indicator that you have a wounded inner child, right? So healing that not enough wound is very, very important. So you guys know what it looks like whenever you don't feel like you're enough. You're not going to speak up for yourself. You're not going to be confident. You're going to be a people pleaser. You're going to avoid conflict, even whenever you really should speak up for yourself, which in turn causes you to be an enabler, because we accept bad behavior that we shouldn't, okay? So once we heal our inner child, we have a solid sense of self. We have a solid sense of being enough or enoughness. We will feel stable at the very core of our being. We will feel safe in our skin. We will feel safe in this world. We will feel safe in our environments. Now, of course, as targeted individuals, we have to always kind of be, you know what I mean? Like, we got to be on guard a little bit as it relates to our safety. But for the most part, do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? Do you feel comfortable in your own skin? Or do you nitpick at yourself? Let's talk about it. Do you nitpick at yourself? Do you pick yourself apart? Are you very self-conscious? All of those things are indicators of a wounded inner child, okay? So that's what this video is about today. Identifying 3 major ways to identify if you have a wounded inner child, and then exactly what it is that looks like, okay? Do you have a need to be in control? Must you be in control, right? What does your romantic relationships look like? Are they healthy? Are they toxic? Like, what's going on? What's going on with your romantic relationships? Okay. And number 3, is your base chakra or your root chakra or your first chakra, is it balanced? Okay. So those are the 3 questions that you're going to ask yourself to determine whether or not you are operating out of a wounded inner child template. Also, I gave you guys examples of things that would cause you to have a wounded inner child. And basically, if you've experienced those things that I named and you haven't done any healing work at all whatsoever as it relates to your inner child, then you probably are still wounded, right? So next week, next week, we're going to get into ways to heal your inner child, right? And I'm going to give you guys a couple different ways. I'm going to give you 5 ways to heal your inner child. Some of those things are going to be related to chakra work, and then other things are going to be more on a psychological level, like ways that you can reprogram your thinking, to then reprogram your behavior so that you are responding as your adult self and not as your inner child, right? So we love our inner child. We love our inner child, right? But we don't want our inner child to actually run our life, right? Because we're adults now and we want to run our life as adults. But if we haven't healed our inner child will what they say will rear, she will rear her ugly head, right? And her head is not ugly because, like I said, we love our inner child. However, her behaviors can be a little off the chart, right? So we said, ways that inner child's behaviors are shutting down, flying off the handle, adult temper tantrums, and we said that our inner child often shows up in, or we could view it like this: romantic relationships, intimate relationships are a huge trigger for our inner child. As an adult, when we go to work, our work life, things of that nature, normally we're like in adult mode whenever we're working and things like that. So we don't see it as much. But in our romantic relationships, because it requires levels of intimacy, closeness, trust, and feeling safe, that's why that baby come out. That's why that baby come out in your romantic relationships. So yeah, you guys, that's all I got for y'all today. I'll be back next Friday so we could talk about how we going to heal that baby. How we going to heal that baby. Okay? Remember this. I love y'all. I want y'all to like the video. I want you to share it with your friends. Share it with your friends. Leave a comment. And don't forget, I'll be back next Friday. Love you. Peace.